In an illegal chimera lab, scientists discover that our MC, a powerful S-rank chimera known as number 17, is losing functionality. Deciding it's no longer useful, they discard it by sending it to the demon realm with a group of hunters, assigning it to protect them but forbidding its return. Inside the realm, countless monsters attack, but 17 effortlessly destroys them, ensuring the hunters' survival. When the mission ends and the gate begins to close, the hunters abandon him as planned. With no orders left and his body failing, 17's human memories resurface. He was an orphan kidnapped and turned into a chimera after being injected with over 500 monster cells. As his life fades, his core releases a massive explosion, and in a shocking twist, number 17 is reborn. Not as a monster, but as his original human self once again. 17 is left in awe as he tries to process what just happened to him. He realizes that the monster cells in him are still active, meaning he is not a regular human. He figures out that the lab is already done with him, which is why they have not come to retrieve him. In addition to the changes on his body, the experiment number on his wrist is gone. 17 believes that he was able to return to life thanks to the ability of the fire-type monsters that reside in his body. Apparently, unless the core is destroyed, the creature can survive up to 3 times. However, there is a saying that the phoenix doesn't fuse with human cells, which basically concludes that his own case is a special one. 17 figures out that everything the lab did to keep him under their leash has absolutely disappeared, and since his life as number 17 is over, he thinks of living as a regular human. In his quest to start a new life, he thinks of a name for himself, and he concludes on Cheon Dawoon. Cheon initially thinks of getting revenge, but he trashes the idea, since he doesn't even know who he is supposed to target. Nonetheless, he is confident that he will eventually run into his targets one day. When Cheon realizes that his body is bare, he figures out that getting clothes will be the first step in becoming human. He starts walking around the demon realm and soon finds a river, which he thinks would be helpful. He looks around, and suddenly finds a dead bird monster that died from poisoning. Since he happened to need leather, he figured out that the bird's hide would do. He transforms his arm into a blade, and with what he learned in the lab, he gets down to skinning the bird. The moment he sinks his blade into the bird's skin, a large smell of poison fills the air. Nonetheless, Cheon continues with skinning the bird, and eventually, he renders the dead bird bare. He now has a large hide that he can use as cloth, but he is disappointed that the hide is very stiff, and in addition, it has not been treated. Just then, he remembers that he can actually tan the hide himself. He gets down to it and starts pounding the hide until it becomes very soft. Cheon is proud of what he achieved, and he wastes no time cutting the hide into shape. While he is doing this, the bird has suddenly come to life behind him. Using his fists, he tears the hide into the perfect shape that he wants for it to become a caveman cloth. He notices that not all of the poison has been dissipated, but he is too lazy to work on it, and he decides to just let it be. Just then, he hears the bird's chirp, and he turns around to be met with the surprise that the bird was not actually dead. Cheon notices that the bird is moving according to his words, ultimately suggesting that it might understand him. Cheon is more surprised that the bird is already showing all signs of death, but for some reason it was still alive. Without thinking too much about it, he figures out that it is one of the immortal-type monsters. He knows that his old self would have killed the bird without thinking twice, but since the bird is already too weak to move, he doesn't see any reason why he has to kill it. He considers them both lucky beings, and he urges the bird to live its second life well, just as he also plans to. As he walks away, Cheon mentions that they might eventually meet somewhere again if fate wants it. After he has solved his clothing problem, he figures out that the next thing on his agenda is to get himself a house. Cheon starts looking around, and the first place he finds is a cave, where he runs into a giant centipede-type monster. Uninterested in living in such a dark place, he ditches it, but before leaving, he relieves the monster of its head. Upon leaving the cave, he wanders till he reaches the snowy mountains. He encounters some ice monsters, but he easily takes them out too. He considers the snowy mountains a no-no because it is going to be hard for him to find food. He continues his search for the perfect home, and after so much effort, he finally finds a location that suits him. There is a lake in the area, and the vegetation is green, with a hill circling the area. He checks out the lake and realizes that it is filled with fish that he can use for food. Everything that makes for a perfect home is present in the area, and without much debate on it, Cheon figures out that he has found where to build his new house. Elsewhere, a mechanical-type chimera just found itself in the demon realm. Since Cheon has decided to build a house at the location, he finds a suitable plot, and he turns his arm into long, sharp blades. With just a swing, he cuts down timbers and arranges them. When he places the foundation timbers on the ground, he notices bumps, and he fixes this by clearing the land until it becomes level. After he is done with this, he grabs the trees, and he starts driving them into the 4 corners that will serve as the house post. After this, he laid planks on the house floor, and for the walls he couldn't get his hands on nails, so he used slime from snail-type monsters. Apparently, the slimes are always very solid, but he doesn't know if it is going to be waterproof or not. For the finishing touches, he uses cocoon silk from silkworm larvae. Cheon is pleased with what he has built, but he notices that something seems to be lacking. He starts thinking of what other human homes have that he is currently lacking. He thinks of a garden or even a dog, but he dismisses the idea, since he can't raise a dog in the demon realm. He concludes that he is going to make a vegetable garden, but even this leaves him conflicted, because he needs to think of something that will grow in the demon realm. Suddenly, it dawns on him that there is a snowy mountain close to him, where he can get a particular plant called mandragora. Cheon immediately heads to the mandragora's habitat, which is the snowy mountains where the demonic energy is thickest. The thick snow on the mountains made him remember when he was kidnapped as a kid and sent to the lab. Even though he went through pain, he can't deny the fact that becoming a chimera has its perks. Some of the perks of being a chimera are that he doesn't have to worry about the cold or hunger. Momentarily, he finds the mandragora's plantations. Apparently, the mandragoras are extremely stress-sensitive, and they are like a sunfish-type monster. They basically can die from even the slightest environmental changes. Since he is planning on relocating the mandragora, he figures out that picking out the younger, more adaptable ones will be the best. The first thing he does is remove the roots, and he also thinks of covering his ears, since they are notorious for screaming when disturbed. He pulls one of the mandragoras out, but to his surprise, it remains silent. He assumes it's a fluke, and he pulls out another, but the result remains the same. In fact, the mandragoras are having a nice nap and couldn't care less. He pulls out several more, but none of them scream like he expected them to. Apparently, the scream happens when the plants are artificially grown by humans. Since the human world has low demonic energy, they are often stressed out, which is why they scream like hell. If they are forcefully pulled out, they also scream, and they end the sequence by dying. Since they are in the demon realm, the mandragoras have no reason to scream. However, Cheon is confused as to why the plants are not trying to run from him, because they should at least be trying to run away. Suddenly, it dawns on him that he actually has mandragora cells in his body, and they probably see him as one of them. He believes that this is a good thing because it is less stressful for him. Cheon is already thinking of the nice things he can get by growing the mandragoras, like tea, and even eating them as snacks. However, forcefully taking their fruits makes them poisonous, and Cheon figures out that he has to find a way to convince the plants to trust him. Just then, he notices that there are hunters in the vicinity, and he decides to check them out since he is curious to know what they are doing in the dangerous snowy mountains. Meanwhile, 2 hunters are facing off against a horde of B-rank rabbit-type monsters after they are left behind by their comrades. The 2 hunters are barely surviving thanks to their barrier, but even this is about to shatter. The 2 start regretting their actions of becoming hunters among all the other jobs available to them. Just as they are about to be killed, something suddenly appears out of nowhere and hits the ground in front of them. This catches their attention, and that of the rabbits too. When the dust from the impact starts to clear off, they are surprised to see the image of a person approaching them, and it is none other than our MC. Cheon realizes that the monsters are engaging snow bunnies, and the moment the rabbits sense the aura coming from his body, panic sets in, and they all vanish into thin air. The hunters cannot believe that B-rank monsters just ran away at the sight of Cheon. The 2 thank Cheon for saving them, and they introduce themselves to him. He also does the same, but the hunters are genuinely confused because they have never heard such a weird name before. Cheon then asks the hunters why they are in the demon realm, because he can clearly see that they are low-rank hunters. The hunters confess that they did it because of money. Apparently, there was a task to capture a chimera alive, and the promised reward was very tempting. The moment they mention a chimera, Cheon becomes defensive, assuming that they are talking about him. Just then, the hunters mention that the chimera escaped from a lab, and it is said to be a mechanical-type chimera. Since he is not a mechanical type, he figures out that he has nothing to worry about. He plans on getting his hands on a gate crystal and then going back to his new house. Cheon then asks the 2 where their gear is because he is pretty sure that they have gate crystals. The hunters then reveal that the dudes who betrayed them have taken all their gear with them. The hunters then ask Cheon if he has any plans to return to the human world soon because they are almost at their limits. Basically, humans can't stay long in the demon realm because of the demonic energy that will kill them. However, this has no effect on Cheon again. The hunters start begging Cheon to save them, but just then, Cheon locates the traitorous hunters. He immediately flies in the air and heads for where the hunters are, while the 2 hunters almost crap their pants because their savior just disappeared right in front of them. Elsewhere, the hunters have managed to corner the chimera and are prepared to take it down. The moment they start converging on it, the chimera angrily activates its battle mode, ready to take on the hunters without fear. Momentarily, Cheon arrives at the last location where he sensed the chimera, only to find nothing but blood and the hunter gear. In addition to this, there is a child's footprint mixed with beast tracks, suggesting that the chimera was changing form while fighting the hunters. Since the chimera was made of liquid metal, it makes sense that it can freely change shape. However, the material used in making it is quite rare, which is why they made it small, not more than the size of a kid or a dog. Cheon is impressed that the chimera was able to take on 5 B-rank hunters who were after it. On the other hand, the 2 hunters are already at their limit, and one of them even has a baby on the way. They are expecting their certain demise when Cheon shows up on the scene, carrying their gear on his back. The hunters start begging him to save them, and just when he was about to ignore them, he remembers that the 2 have no gate crystals left. One of the hunters whips out 2 million won in cash, telling Cheon that they are ready to buy the stones if he has them. It is apparent that they are going to die if they don't get out of the demon realm, and fast. Cheon is blown away by the amount of money that he is being offered for the gate stone, even though he really doesn't need it. Nonetheless, he decides to take the money because he might need it when he finally decides to visit the human world. Cheon then opens a gate for them, and the hunter bows to him, assuring him that he is never going to forget the favor he just did for them. The hunter grabs his already exhausted friend so that they can leave, and this is when Cheon mentions that gate stones were always around 200,000, but the hunter tells him that prices have changed ages ago. The hunter asks Cheon why he is interested in this, and he reveals he feels kind of bad that he extorted them. To get rid of this guilt, he decides to do something for them in return. He taps the exhausted hunter on the shoulder and starts infusing mana into his body, ultimately shocking the hunters. The technique is something that even A-rank hunters don't want to get involved with. This is because the manas might clash and tangle, which will rupture their mana holes, ultimately causing death. The hunters assumed that Cheon was going to fail and they were going to die, but to their utmost surprise, he pulled it off, and he purified the demonic energy. The hunters hugged each other tightly because they thought they were already dead. After he is done helping them, Cheon decides that it is time for him to leave. The 2 start thanking him, while wondering just how powerful his mana is for him to have easily infused it into the exhausted hunter. After the hunters are gone, he returns to his house, and he is pleased that his trip went well. He notices that mandragoras are already awake, and he figures that it is time to plant them. He finds a spot on the land where he plants the mandragoras, but they seem unhappy. Cheon wonders what is wrong with them, and he tries feeding them some mana to make them feel better. Just as expected, their mood actually changed, leaving Cheon relieved. Meanwhile, the mechanical chimera is hiding the bush behind him, and even though he can sense the chimera's energy, Cheon decides not to make a move until it actually wants to connect with him. Cheon steps into his house, and he pours out everything he got from the hunters, including the cash. Among them are a portable burner, 8 gate stones, spare clothes, and sleeping bags. Cheon is glad that everything is just what he needed, and luckily for him, there is ramen in the bag too. He remembered that the last time he had ramen was when he was at the orphanage. Since he is hungry, he decides to make ramen for himself. Following the instructions on the ramen pack, he grabs a pot and steps outside to get water. However, a fish comes flying out of the water to attack him. Since he is going to need other ingredients for the ramen, he smacks it to death and stuffs the fish into the pot. To add more ingredients to the ramen, he finds wild eggs, herbs to serve as onions, and stuffs everything into the pot. Meanwhile, the mechanical chimera is watching, and its stomach grumbles for food. Cheon turned on the gas and started preparing the ramen, but the terrible smell from the ramen almost choked the mandragoras to death. Even though the food obviously smells really terrible, the mechanical chimera is really interested in it. Since it wants to eat out of the food, it thinks of a genius idea and transforms into a dog. It learned that humans like dogs, and in addition, they feel more sympathy toward wounded animals. It approaches Cheon like a dog, but Cheon can easily sense that it is the mechanical chimera. Cheon assesses the situation and realizes that the mechanical chimera is still young and learning. He wonders how the chimera was able to escape the lab and make its way into the demon realm. Since the chimera is willing to join him, he offers it the terrible-looking ramen that he made. The 2 sit together to eat, and it reminds Cheon of when he and his fellow orphans enjoyed eating ramen in the orphanage. After they are done enjoying their beautiful meal, Cheon tells the chimera that it can leave, since he has to clean up. The dog turns around to leave, but as it walks away, Cheon reminds it that it was limping on its left foot earlier. The chimera is shocked and realizes that it has been discovered, but it changes its supposedly affected foot and continues moving. Shortly afterward, he decides to try out laundry and packs out some of the clothes he got from the hunters. He figures out that he needs to do it since he can't be wearing leather clothes for the rest of his life when he is not a freaking caveman. He places the shirt on a rock, and he figures out that he is just going to follow the instructions of how to do laundry that he already knows. He grabs a short stick and carefully hits the shirt, but to his surprise, even his gentle strike shatters the rock and shirt. Cheon is hit with the frustration of what comes with being strong, but he finds solace in the fact that he has one more shirt to try. However, he notices that the mechanical chimera is still stalking him even though it has refused to make contact. It is basically transforming into anything that fits its disguise, and it's watching his every move. With everything he has seen so far, Cheon figures out that the mechanical chimera is still under the age of 5. In addition, it has an awkward mechanical speech, which Cheon thinks is okay since it is just a side effect in young chimeras who had knowledge forcibly implanted into them. After a really tough moment, he finally pulls off doing the laundry and it comes out nice. However, it was after washing the shirt that he realized that it was too small for him. But instead of ditching it, he decided that he was going to just hang it on the line and leave it there as a trophy. After this, he figures out that checking on the mandragoras is the next thing on his list. Just as he left the cloth on the rope, the mechanical chimera grabs it and puts it on just because it is imitating what he has seen in other humans. The mechanical chimera declares that the shirt is finally its own, and to rock it better, it transforms into a young girl with beautiful long hair. While looking at the mandragoras, Cheon realizes that they are acting really weird, which is not supposed to be so. The leaves on the plants are already wilting, and the roots appear to be dry. Cheon is confused because he pulled out all the weeds when he was making the field for the mandragoras. Cheon then carefully investigates, and this is when he finds out that there are parasites underground that have been making life difficult for the mandragoras. He faults himself for not checking thoroughly, which almost led to the death of the plants. He figures out that he needs to make a proper garden, which is about the size of his house. Just when he's about to start, the chimera shows up and greets him. Cheon is shocked to see that the chimera has changed into a girl, and is even trying to talk to him. The girl asks Cheon if the structure behind him is his house, and Cheon says yes. She then asks if he is a native of the land, and the moment Cheon hears this, he decides to mess with her a bit. Cheon says he is a native, and he asks the chimera which tribe she's from. The chimera is stunned by the question, but after giving it a quick thought, she mentions that she came from across the waterfall, which is quite far away. She adds that it is so far that it is basically impossible for Cheon to find. Cheon decides to play with her further by asking if it is from the coconut tribe, which is by the waterfall. The chimera quickly agrees to this, saying she is from the coconut tribe. Cheon then mentions the outfit she is putting on, saying it obviously belongs to him. The girl argues that what they find in their tribe automatically belongs to them. Cheon decides to back off, telling the girl that she is free to have it. Cheon asks her why she is in the area, and she explains that she was kicked out of the tribe, which is why she has a favor to ask. The girl tells Cheon that she would like to live at his house, and she begs him to agree. Cheon plays the role of a fool by asking her what she meant about living there, and she reveals that it seems to be safe. Cheon figures out that she needs a place to crash, and he agrees, but he lets her know that she has to prove her worth. The girl agrees, and she suggests that Cheon give her a job to do. Cheon then tells her that he is going to need her to till the field because he wants to build a new home for the mandragoras. The girl wastes no time grabbing the stick from him while assuring him that she is good at using her strength. She immediately trashes the ground, shocking Cheon because the girl is not even trying to hide her own strength. Cheon then figures out that she is not used to being a normal kid, so she doesn't understand how they behave. Suddenly, the girl is hit with the "what is your name" question. The girl is shocked, since she doesn't have one, but she decides to make a new name for herself. Judging by the flowers she saw earlier, she declares that her name is Kim Nari. Cheon figures out how she coined the name, but he is not ready to argue with her. Momentarily, she finishes up with the garden, and Cheon sets up the stone fence. Cheon then places the mandragoras there, and they obviously love the new setting. Cheon notices that Kim Nari is crying, and he asks her what the problem is. She mentions that seeing the mandragoras reminds her of her friends, leaving Cheon shocked because he doesn't expect the lab to allow their products to be social. Suddenly, Cheon senses a strange aura in the air, and he figures out that monsters are fighting each other. Nari then tells Cheon that she saw a chick monster earlier, and judging by the aura in the air, the chick monster is being attacked. Cheon is not moved, but he notices that Nari is uncomfortable, shocking him. Surprisingly, Nari wants them to save the monster, but she's having a tough time expressing it because of the commands that have been instilled in her. She basically has no free will of her own, but Cheon decides to help out. He tells Nari that the chick might actually survive if they help it, and this suggestion triggers Nari into charging toward where the chick monster is being attacked by a group of other annoying monsters. Nari angrily hits the monsters, telling them to stop bullying the chick. Switching to Nari's backstory, it turns out that she was bullied by her fellow experimental buddies because she was always diligent, and she does everything asked of her. They basically gang up on her and beat her to a pulp, which is why she hates bullies. Fueled by the anger from the past, she beats up all of the monsters without mercy. Cheon is tending to the mandragoras when Nari returns with the white chick in her hand, but the chick is unconscious from the attack it suffered. Cheon is about to tell her what to do when he suddenly realizes that the chick is very familiar. Nari bursts into tears, begging Cheon to save the bird, and Cheon offers to help. He places his hand on the chick and transfers mana into it since there are no signs of fatal injuries. While doing this, Cheon easily figures out that the chick was the immortal-type monster that he took the hide from. However, Cheon is confused as to why the monster shrank to a small size, but he assumes that its regeneration method is different from his. After he is done feeding it with mana, Nari asks if the monster is facing any serious threat, but Cheon mentions that it is basically malnourished. It was starving because of its small size, and Cheon assures the girl that the monster will recover on its own since he has fed it some mana. Surprisingly, Nari is scared to leave the chick by itself, and she begs Cheon, asking if she can raise the monster. She promises to train the monster properly and even feed it. Cheon tells Nari that the chick monster might end up being gigantic when it matures, but Nari doesn't mind, assuring Cheon that she is going to feed it just a little. Cheon is not ready to start going back and forth with her again, and he agrees for her to take care of it. Cheon believes that it will also come in handy if they just leave it in the yard to guard it. Momentarily, the bird monster wakes up, and the moment it opens its eyes, it recognizes Cheon. While Nari is celebrating that the monster is awake, the monster, on the other hand, is staring cautiously at the tough dude standing in front. The monster is also disgusted with the fact that it is being grabbed and thrown around by a little girl, leaving it to wonder how a little girl found its way into the demon realm. While Nari is hearing a goo-goo sound, Cheon can hear the bird monster screaming for its life. Cheon is shocked by the realization that he can understand what the bird is saying. Nari is excited to have a pet, and she wastes no time bathing it. And she has even decided on a name for it. The best name she could come up with is Goo, since the bird makes goo-goo sounds like a pigeon. The monster bird cannot believe that they are basically picking out trash names for it. Goo gets on his feet and starts screaming at Nari, forcing the girl to believe that Goo is crying and wants more water. She doesn't hesitate before splashing it with more water, but this only makes life harder for Goo. Goo lies on the table begging for Nari to stop with all the water splashing. Since Nari can't understand Goo, Cheon steps in, and he tells Nari to hold off on the water splashing. Nari then decides that what Goo needs is food, and she steps out to get food. Later on, Cheon figures out that he is going to need a storage space, and he sets down some trees so he can cut them into the sizes he wants. However, the tree breaks apart with the slightest touch, leaving Cheon confused. He knows that he followed all the instructions that he is aware of, but Goo lets him know that he is getting everything wrong. Goo mentions that trees have different textures, and the one Cheon is trying to cut is basically softwood. Cheon is surprised to learn that trees have different hardness, and Goo cannot believe just how dumb the guy is for not knowing. Cheon then asks Goo what color signifies the hardest wood, and Goo reveals that red-colored wood is the strongest. Suddenly, it dawns on the chick monster that Cheon can actually understand him, but to confirm, it decides to create a telepathic bridge to get into Cheon's head, but Cheon blocks it the instant he notices it. Goo then asks Cheon how he is able to understand it, and Cheon mentions that he is basically feeling human words popping up in his head. Cheon, on the other hand, thinks it is more weird that a monster can understand human words. Goo is hesitant to reveal how it can do this, but Cheon figures out that it is one of the rare intelligence-type monsters born from low probability. Cheon has always heard of it, but it's basically his first time seeing one in person. Cheon then points out the fact that he and the monster have met before, and Goo doesn't deny this. In fact, Goo has been waiting to meet him again because he actually saved its life when he removed its poison-infested hide. Goo had already promised that whenever they met again, it was going to help Cheon, even if it was once. Cheon finally figures out that its immortality core remained because he got rid of the poison ravaging Goo's body back then. Since it is offering to help, Cheon asks if it is ready to render the help at that moment, and he says yes. Goo tells Cheon to follow it, and it will lead Cheon to where the red trees grow. They are about to leave when Nari comes rushing back with a hunter hot on her tail. The hunter uses fire-type attacks, which scare Nari. The hunter is not pleased with the fact that he has to attack a little girl, but at the same time his whole life and career are on the line if he doesn't retrieve the mechanical chimera. The hunter catches up to Nari, who has crashed to the ground in tears. He shoots a powerful flame attack to try and overwhelm Nari, but Cheon blocks the attack. Cheon looks absolutely pissed with Goo sitting on his shoulder as they aura farm their way into the scene. Goo tells Cheon that he will tell Cheon about the trees after they have saved Nari. Cheon notices that Nari is acting totally out of it because she is afraid of fire, and he decides to put out the fire first. Goo is pissed that the hunter is bullying a kid, and the hunter, on the other hand, is pissed that someone he doesn't know is preventing him from carrying out his duties. Cheon basically tells the dude to keep his mouth shut because he talks a lot. This pisses the hunter off, and he angrily unleashes more firepower from his body, but Cheon does something easy to subdue him. He hits the hill behind him with an energy blast that causes it to come crashing down on the hunter. The hunter realizes this very late, and before he knows it, He finds himself trapped under a bulk load of sand. Cheon then checks on Nari to tell her that she has nothing to worry about again. He assures her that all she needs to do when she's scared of something is to knock it out. Cheon then decides to check on the hunter. He grabs his head and tries pulling him from the sand, but to his surprise, the hunter's hair comes off. Cheon is surprised when he sees this, but he is totally blown away when he sees the hunter's ugly bald head. The entire team is surprised because the hunter looks so young, but he is already bald, which is why he is hiding his insecurity by wearing a wig. Nari forgets that she was crying herself to death some moments ago, and she starts laughing at Mr. Baldy. Cheon, on the other hand, tries to assess the situation, and judging by the hunter's strength and Nari's strength, Cheon doesn't think she should be losing to the likes of him. Since he wants to know what is going on, he resorts to the use of telepathy, which can help look into someone's memories. He senses that Nari is still scared of the evil scientist who worked on her, and Cheon pats Nari on the head for being a strong girl. Cheon figures out that the trauma might not disappear immediately, but it will get better as time progresses. Cheon is then left with what he is supposed to do with Mr. Baldy, and with a bright face, Nari says she has an idea. Momentarily, the hunter wakes up to find himself hanging from the waterfall. They have tied a big rope to a big stone, and he is strung to the rope. The hunter sees this and starts regretting all of his life decisions. Nari is in the distance, is having a laugh, while Cheon tries to stop her from making fun of someone else's appearance. Cheon then grabs the pot and fetches water from the river, claiming that it is for ramen. Nari is excited when she hears this because she believes that Cheon's fish ramen is the best in the world. Cheon teases her by asking her if the coconut tribe eats fish ramen, and she excitedly says yes. The hunter, on the other hand, is trying to understand his situation, and judging by Cheon's appearance, he figures out that he is A rank at least. However, he doesn't rule out the idea that Cheon might even be stronger than he thinks because there are reports of hunters who are pretty strong, but they operate from the shadows. While Cheon is getting water for the ramen, Nari is busy catching fish left and right. Cheon then tells her that they only need one fish so she can let the rest go. Nari excitedly agrees with this, and Cheon urges her to drop the fish in the pot. The hunter is horrified by what he is looking at, as he cannot believe that the huge amount of water that they are fetching into the pot is what they plan to use in cooking the 3 packs of ramen. The hunter cannot stand the abomination that they are about to commit, and he screams at them, telling them to let him go so he can cook the ramen. Cheon agrees and cuts him down from where he is, so he can cook the ramen. Even though it is just ramen, the hunter can sense the immense pressure coming from the two, ultimately pointing out that he is dead meat if he messes it up. With sweat dripping from his face, he decides to go with the standard form of cooking ramen that he knows. He figures out that the amount of water that he needs will depend on what his sixth sense says it is. Since he is cooking 3 packs of ramen, he adds the sauce and noodles to the boiling water, and he figures out that he needs just a little over 4 minutes to get it done. To get the exact minute, he starts counting his heartbeat, and the moment he reaches 200, he starts implementing all the noodle techniques that he knows. The hunter wishes that he had some kimchi, but since he is in the demon realm, he can't. Nonetheless, he did his best, and he has no regrets about what might come after. Once he is done, he calls the group to ask if they are interested. They stare at the noodles, and Nari is the first to point out that the noodles look absolutely different from those Cheon cooked. Cheon and the group decide to try it out, and the moment they take a spoon out of it, they are sent into a foodgasmic state because of the tasty ramen. Nari jumps off the table telling Cheon how delicious the ramen is. Even Gu is entirely blown away as he asks if humans are always eating such delicious food every day. Cheon mentions that he's actually surprised, but he suggests that they finish the ramen first. Shortly afterward, they finish the food, and deep down, they wish the ramen hadn't finished. The hunter nervously asks them if they liked the ramen, and the first thing Cheon asks him is what he actually wants. The hunter is confused by the question, and Cheon mentions that the ramen is too delicious for him to eat for free. Cheon then urges the hunter to tell him what he wants, and if it is something within his power, he promises to grant it. The hunter, Nam Kiseok, is happy to hear this, and he immediately falls face first, telling Cheon to teach him how to be strong just like him. Cheon is shocked to hear this as he asks Kiseok why he is asking him to teach him when he is not his master. Kiseok confesses that Cheon is the strongest hunter that he has met. In addition, Kiseok can see that Cheon has settled down in the demon realm, which is why he built a house there. Kiseok tries to point out the perks of having him around, and the standout perk is that he can cook. In fact, he is ready to become a delivery man who helps Cheon get things from the human realm. Kiseok is very desperate to learn from Cheon so he can be promoted to A rank. Cheon then asks Kiseok if he attacked Nari because of the bounty. The hunter is surprised that the mechanical creature has gotten a name, and Cheon whispers in his ear, telling him to go with the flow that Nari is from the coconut tribe. Kiseok mentions that he went after Nari because of personal reasons that are difficult for him to say, but he assures Cheon that it is definitely not because of bounty. Kisyuk then mentions that as long as he passes the hunter promotion test, he is not worried about anything else. After hearing his plea, Cheon agrees to help him, since he also made a delicious meal for him. To start the training, he suggests that they start with a sparring match first. Kisyuk is glad to hear this, but Nari cuts in, saying she wants to be the one to spar with Kisyuk. Cheon asks her if she is confident about what she just said, and she reminds Cheon that he was the one who said scary things are to be knocked unconscious. Fueled with determination, she wants a chance to put out Kisyuk's fire too. Cheon then points to a black rock, asking Kisyuk if he can break it. The rock is known as Black Iron Stone, which is a stone that is said to be several times harder than diamond. Kisyuk is stunned by the request, and while he is still making up excuses of why he can't break the stone, Nari shatters it and demands that they engage in a sparring session. The next scene dives into Kisyuk's backstory, who was a naturally awakened hunter and considered a prodigy at that. He awakened his abilities when he was 8, which is a bit early since regular people awaken their abilities when they are 10 or older. Because he was hardworking, he was able to grow at a really fast rate, and he reached B rank plus before the age of 20. Everything was going so perfectly for him until he realized that his hair had fallen out. In his early 20s, the crown on his head reduced drastically, and by the time he got to his mid-20s, he developed a receding M-shaped hairline. Kisyuk started visiting pharmacies just to try and get a solution to the problem. However, the pharmacist told him to give up on trying to get a transplant because it would eventually fall out. He was once a handsome dude who had so much talent, but the hair issue made him lose his light. Because of this, his growth as a hunter also came to a full halt until one day he saw a research program hosted by Dr. Han Myong-do of the Hanbit Research Institute. The doctor was talking about how he accidentally spilled the rare liquid material all over his head, and surprisingly, his hair grew a whole lot. Apparently, he is nearly 90 years old, but he has full hair on his head. This caught Kisyuk's attention, and he got up from where he was rotting on his couch. When Myung-do is asked about the remaining liquid metal, he mentions his plan to use the remaining liquid metal to create a mechanical life form and challenge for the big prize. Kisyuk has a valid crash out when he realizes that the doctor has no plan to make a hair loss cure, which is considered the real use for humanity. A few days after this, Kisyuk reads in the news that the mechanical life form created by the Hanbit Research Institute has escaped into the demon realm. Since there are no laws in the demon realm, Kisyuk got out of his slumber and decided to find the mechanical life form so he could keep it for himself. He plans to pour all the metal there on his head, but now that he is in the demon realm and sparring with Nari, he is getting beaten up. Kisyuk cannot believe that Nari is way stronger than him because he couldn't even land a single hit on Nari. Cheon is disappointed and lets Kisyuk know this. However, Kisyuk is not a quitter, and he assures his supposed master that he is going to do better. Later on, Cheon manages to get the storage cabinet done thanks to the tip he got from Gu about the red wood. Even Gu is proud of Cheon's creation, and it tells him that the cabinet will definitely last a long time. While everyone is busy with their own thing, Kisyuk is training really hard. Even though he is suffering in Nari's hands, he doesn't feel any sense of embarrassment. Instead, he feels a sense of freedom. He believes that this is because he has taken off his wig. Gu is impressed with Kisyuk's ability to control fire, but he is disappointed that he can't even beat a kid. Cheon then tells Gu that Nari is not just any kid, which makes it understandable. Because of his refusal to give up, he asks for another sparring match with Nari. This time around, he goes after Nari with a flame shaped in the form of a blade. He manages to land a hit on Nari, but she liquefies her body, shocking Kisyuk. This leaves him in awe, but at the same time totally open to Nari's attack. Nari easily returns to her human form and kicks him so hard that he crashes into the nearby hill, leaving a noticeable crack in the wall. Nari confidently mentions that he is no longer scared of fire, and this is all thanks to Cheon. While lying there in shame, Cheon wonders if he has reached his limit as a B rank and no longer has any skill to boast of. However, Kisyuk has an admirable trait of not giving up, and because of this, he gets back on his feet with an excited look on his face. He asks Nari for another session, but suddenly, he notices that he has a nosebleed, and Cheon asks him how many days he has spent in the demon realm. Kisyuk replies that he has been in the demon realm for 9 days, and Cheon suggests that he return to the human realm because, at his current rank, he is going to die if he stays any longer. Kisyuk agrees with Cheon even though he wants to stay longer. Cheon then tells him that he has the potential to become an A-rank hunter, and by this he urges him to continue working hard. Kisyuk is shocked to hear this, but he no longer has any hope in himself because he has been failing the A-rank exam for 6 years straight. Apparently, there is a saying that if one can't pass the same rank exam in 3 years, the person is nothing but a lost cause. And for him to have failed 6 times already is just unprecedented. Cheon then tells him that he can do it because his monohole hasn't fully developed. Cheon urges Kisyuk to make sure he purifies the demonic energy once he returns. Kisyuk thanks Cheon for the advice, and he assures him that he is going to do his best. Momentarily, Kiseok prepares to return, and he asks Cheon if there is anything else that he needs because he can see that he is out of ramen already. Cheon doesn't ask for anything else aside from the ramen, and Nari wishes him a safe trip. Kiseok urges Nari to continue training while telling her that he is going to win their fight the next time they clash. Before stepping off, Kiseok asks Cheon if he has seen his wig, but he says no, that he hasn't. Once there is nothing else to do, he finally leaves, and after he is gone, Gu calls Cheon's attention to the risk of Kiseok betraying them. Cheon then asks Gu what he thinks Kiseok would do since he can also read people's minds. Cheon can see that Kiseok is not joking around with his quest to become stronger, and in addition to that, Cheon likes the fact that he is sincere. Just then, Nari asks Cheon if he can understand Gu, and he says yes. Cheon then takes Nari into the house to show the cabinet he finished. He is proud of his creation, but Nari points out that the house is a bit dark. Cheon agrees with her and decides that making a window should help solve that. Using his abilities, he cut out window spaces in the house, leaving Nari very excited. Since Nari likes everywhere when it is bright, Cheon points out the need for them to have lights at night so that everywhere is not dark. Cheon says there is a stone known as glowstone, which emits light in the dark, and putting up a few will brighten things up. Gu then asks Cheon if he even knows where he has to go to find the glowstones, and he says yes. Apparently, they can be found in the volcanic region, and this is a region that is considered to be one of the most dangerous places by hunters. Gu then mentions that this place is his hometown, but while saying it, he looks dejected. Cheon is surprised to see this, since he expects him to be happy because going home is a good thing. Nari asks Cheon what Gu is saying, and Cheon simply reveals that Gu is upset about something. Since Gu is worried about the volcanic region, Cheon says he will be going by himself, so the two are free to stay at the house. Nari refuses, saying she has to go with Cheon because she has overcome her fear of fire. Cheon is impressed that the girl managed to overcome her fear pretty fast. Cheon then asks Gu if he is interested in going. Reluctantly, he replies that he would, and this is because he has some unfinished business back there. Since they are all in agreement to go, Cheon reveals that he is going to make some equipment for Gu to use in the volcanic region. Meanwhile, in the Mandragora plantation, they are busy playing with Kiseok's wig that they stole. Apparently, the volcanic region is largely avoided because of the volcanic ash that tears against the skin, the concentrated demonic energy that is liable to kill from just a single breath, and the toxic gas. It is also one of the reasons why it is almost unknown to the human world, but the moment the team arrives there, Nari is already playing around with fire, literally. Gu understands why the girl is acting all weird, and this is because she is a mechanical life form. However, he is more interested in what Cheon is. Cheon simply replies that he is a chimera hunter, but this surprises Gu, since he knows that chimera hunters are not always in human forms. Cheon mentions that he was always like that, but the moment he regenerated, his form changed. Cheon then asks Gu if he is fine hanging out with them, since he is a monster and might not be too comfortable around a hunter. Gu assures Cheon that he has nothing to worry about with them, since he enjoys having someone he can talk to. While the two are discussing, Nari shows up to complain about the fact that she can't hear Gu, unlike Cheon. Cheon then tells Nari that all Gu wanted to know was his origin. Nari quickly cuts in, saying she is a native, but Gu knows better. They continue exploring the hot and boiling land, and Cheon mentions that they should be able to find the luminous stones near the lava sprouts. Momentarily, they get to the summit and can see the stones in front. However, they notice a male fire toad that appears to be crying in the distance. Surprisingly, there is a dead female fire toad in front of it, which is why the toad is crying. Apparently, the female was transporting their eggs when she died. Gu mentions that only the females can carry the eggs, and since it is already dead, there is a high chance that all the eggs will die too. In addition, the temperature inside the crater is too hot for the eggs to survive. As expected, Nari feels pity for the toad, and Cheon decides to step in. Cheon jumps toward the toad, while Gu tries warning it not to go near it because the toad is clearly agitated. Just as predicted, the toad attacks Cheon with its fire breath, but Cheon blocks it with just one finger. Before the toad knows it, Cheon has reached him and he taps its head with just one finger. It turns out that Cheon hit the toad with a paralytic poison when he tapped it on the head. This causes the toad to lose mobility, but Cheon is quite aware that the toad will wake up soon, since he only used a bit of the poison. In addition to that, the fire toads are quite resistant to poison. From the summit, Nari screams at Cheon, asking him if he is okay. Cheon replies that he is fine because he actually has fire toad cells in his body. Cheon says they might not be able to do anything about the dead toad, but he believes that they can still save the one alive. Cheon then gathers the eggs and places them on the back of the male toad before tying it securely to make sure it doesn't fall off. The male toad is shocked when he comes back to his senses to see that he is now carrying the eggs. It moves over to its dead partner and says its goodbyes before leaping off a great distance. Before making his final leap away from the area, The fire toad looks back to briefly stare at Nari, and she concludes that the toad was trying to thank them. Since they have finished with the toads, Cheon tells Nari to come down so that they can get the stones. Nari excitedly grabs the stones off the volcanic pit, but Cheon warns her to be careful because she is going to hurt her foot if she drops them. Nari giggles jokingly, saying the stone is nothing compared to her strength. Gu, on the other hand, is struggling to carry the stones, and he blames this on his little body. Cheon then urges him to go take care of his business while he takes care of the stones. Cheon believes that Gu even brought gifts for his friends, but Gu retorts, saying monsters don't have friends. In fact, he is not planning on meeting them, but he just wants to drop the gifts and leave. Cheon is impressed that Gu is missing his kin, which makes him a very intelligent monster. Gu, on the other hand, deludes himself by saying he is not missing them but regrets not saying goodbye to them when he left. Cheon then asks Gu why he left his pack. Gu then mentions that there were good things that came with his intelligence awakening, and there are bad things too. Apparently, Gu felt he never would have felt the emptiness that is currently ravaging him if he hadn't learned the language. Gu felt superior and alone, since he couldn't properly relate to anyone, which is why he left the pack. In fact, his pack doesn't know he is gone, but he doesn't blame them, since they really don't have the sense of kinship. In the process of removing the stones, Nari suddenly stumbles upon an egg, which is obviously a monster egg, but she has no idea which one it is. However, there was a slight crack on the egg when Gu almost fell and dropped the stone he was carrying. Cheon is worried that the hatchling might have a problem because it actually needs to break out of the egg on its own to be able to grow strong and healthy. Nari is concerned, and she suggests that they take the egg with them so it doesn't cook. Gu is against this since they don't know what type of monster will hatch from it. Cheon, on the other hand, is thinking about a perfect solution. He has a place that he believes would be perfect for a nest, and in addition to that, he is a bit curious about what is inside the egg. After careful consideration, Cheon decides that they will be taking the egg back home. Gu remains adamant that they should leave the egg because he has never seen an egg like that before. Cheon then uses the guilt trip card on him, asking him why he dropped the stone to crack the egg in the first place. Gu accepts the blame but reminds Cheon that Nari might get hurt because of the stupid decision he is about to make. Cheon then tells Gu that they have nothing to worry about as long as he is around. Gu takes into account what he said and he agrees for them to take the egg home. Since they have all agreed to take the egg back home, Cheon suggests that they continue with their stone mining. Soon afterward, the group returns home to see that Kiseok is back. Cheon is surprised that the dude returned early. Kiseok then offers to carry Cheon's bags for him, and Cheon decides to hand him the bag, since he claims that he is strong. Kiseok collects the bag, but he immediately drops it as if he were handed Thor's hammer. Just then, Cheon notices that Kiseok's face is covered in bruises, and he asks him what happened to him. Back at the volcanic region, Gu's gift to his kinsmen is the ramen packs that he left for them. Cheon figures out that Kiseok must have gotten beaten up somewhere, but this is a shock to him, since Kiseok doesn't appear to be the type of guy to be bullied. Kiseok tries to defend his aura-reducing moments by saying Nari usually beats him, but Cheon can't believe that the dude is actually proud of it. To avoid getting questioned by Cheon, Kiseok runs off, saying he needs to prepare food for them. Moments later, Nari finds Cheon working on the stones, and he asks him what he is doing. Cheon mentions that he is working on the lamp by cutting and shaping the stones. Cheon tells Nari that he is going to hang the glowstones on the ceilings, and he assures her that it will turn out nice. Nari commends Cheon for being a smart guy, and the fact that he explains things in detail too. In addition, Nari believes that Cheon is a kind-hearted person just like her father. Cheon milks the opportunity by asking her if she is talking about her daddy, who is in the coconut tribe. Nari tries to play along too by saying yes. Shortly afterward, a fight breaks out between Gu and the Mandragoras because he believes that they invaded his territory. Later on, Kiseok finishes making one of his special dishes, tofu pockets. He serves the dish and urges the group to dig in. Even though Cheon is interested in the food, he tells Kiseok that he would like to know what actually happened to his face. Kiseok mentions that he went to the Hunter Association to apply for the promotion exam, but he ran into some A-rank hunters, and they teased him for failing 7 years in a row, which eventually led to a fight. Before he even finishes his story, the group has finished their food and is asking for more. Kiseok mentions that the hunters told him to stop hanging around, since he is nothing but a total failure. Kiseok says they kept teasing him about his hair, which was why he fell for their taunts and ended up fighting them. Cheon then asks him if he is totally bald or if he shaved his head. Apparently his hair loss remains a medical mystery that no one has been able to get a solution to. Cheon then asks him when the next promotion exam is, and Kiseok says it's in 90 days. Since they have little time left, Cheon suggests that it is time for them to engage in special training. Kiseok is eager about the training, and he assures Cheon that he is going to do anything he asks him to. Cheon shocks him when he says the first thing he is going to do is to take over the dishes from Nari. Kisiok is still crying about the dishes when Cheon tells him that he has to wash the remaining glowstones to get rid of the volcanic ash on them. Kisiok is shocked by this, leaving him to remind Cheon that he mentioned something about special training. Cheon then tells him that he is free to ignore the training if he wants to live the rest of his life as trash. Cheon then turns to Nari, telling her that they need to go fishing to aid their digestion. Nari is excited about this, and Kisiok, on the other hand, figures out that Cheon must have a reason to tell him to wash the dishes. Instead of complaining, Kisiok gets down to the dishes because he is a man who worked really hard to get to B class. Kisiok doesn't waste any moment in glazing himself about all the good qualities that he has. Kisiok runs after Nari and Cheon, and he joins them at the river. While Nari and Cheon are trying to catch fish, Kisiok is busy doing the dishes, but he is having a hard time with the fish. Apparently, his type of power makes it hard for him to deal with aquatic animals. Cheon is utterly disappointed in Kisiok, and he tells him that his mana has its uses. He tells him to put up a shield with his mana, and Kisiok mentions that he is always trying to, but it has never worked. Upon hearing this, Cheon grabs a glowstone and tells Kisiok to hold it. Kisiok is surprised that he is asked to hold a glowstone all of a sudden, but just then, the stone drops from his arm. This is when it dawns on him that the stone is basically demonic energy at its core, and he can't put enough strength into holding it. Cheon says Kisiok is right because some glowstones contain condensed demonic energy, and the demonic energy from the demon realm is raw, unrefined power. Cheon explains that he has to use refined mana to push it out before he gets to properly use his power. Cheon lets Kisiok know that he has a lot of mana in his body, but he is just unskilled on how to control it. Cheon taps a point on his chest and asks him if a path has opened in his body. Just as Cheon said, Kisiok can feel mana surging through him, and Cheon urges him to follow the path that he just opened. Cheon then tells him to focus on his mana while trying to lift the glowstone. Kisiok does as instructed, and after struggling a bit with the stone, he is finally able to lift it up. Kisiok is impressed that doing the dishes and washing the stones were all part of Cheon's plan. Since Kisiok is happy doing it, Cheon tells him to continue channeling his mana while also taking care of the dishes. Excited about the whole situation, Kisiok assures Cheon that he is ready to do everything he mentions. Cheon is also impressed by his determination and sheer will because deep down, Cheon is confident that Kisiok is capable of doing it. That night, Cheon hangs the glowstone in the ceiling, and it makes for a good lamp. While everyone else is sleeping, Gu is the only one with the egg, because he slept earlier in the day, and there is nothing like sleep in his body again. Suddenly, he sees Nari stand up from her sleep like a zombie, and she starts walking out of the house. Surprisingly, Nari walks out of the house to take care of her clothes because it is dirty. Cheon and Gu stays in the distance to wonder why the girl is doing laundry in the middle of the night. Gu believes that she needed to do it since she is a girl and doesn't have any other clothes. Momentarily, Nari walks out of the water with happiness that she has done her laundry, and it is now clean. She is celebrating her small win when Cheon steps out, acting like he is out to get fresh air. When Nari asks him what he is doing outside, he claims that he is on a walk with Gu. Cheon also asks her if she is on a walk, and she nervously says yes. Cheon then tells Nari to stay still, and he puts a belt and her flower on her waist. Nari loves the new addition because it makes her look cool. Suddenly, they hear something irritating from the forest, and this scares Nari. But Cheon assures her that she has nothing to worry about because it is just a grasshopper. They start walking back home, and Cheon asks Nari if there is anything else that she needs, like clothes and shoes. Nari then says she is pleased with the ones Cheon has given her already. Later on, Cheon steps out of the demon realm, wearing a nice outfit but with no shoes. He intends to go shopping because of Nari, and the passers-by look at Cheon like he is some sort of insane person. Cheon can't get Nari out of the demon realm since she has a tracking device embedded in her. And also, she is also suffering from trauma. Cheon never believed he would find himself in the human realm because of a kid's clothes. While he is standing around looking for the clothing store, he is approached by a rugged-looking kid who assures him that he can help him find the clothing store for 10,000 won. Since he can clearly see that Cheon is not from around there, he assures him that he can lead him to a store. Cheon is willing to pay, but he tells the dude that he doesn't have small bills with him, and would only pay when he gets smaller change. The kid is not impressed that a hunter has no 10,000 won on him, and he assumes that Cheon is a rookie who got scammed. Nonetheless, he still asks Cheon to follow him, since he looks like he has money to buy clothes. As they are walking through the street, he introduces himself as Oh Bong-soo, and Cheon notices the police patrol cars stationed around, making him believe that the slum is now safe. Bong-soo then mentions that he can clearly see that Cheon has not awakened for long because he came out of the gate without any equipment. To Bong-soo, he believes that Cheon was robbed by other strong dudes, but he gives Cheon a word of advice that he should not give up. Cheon thinks the kid is wise for his age, but he argues that he is not a kid because he is 17 years old. Suddenly, they spot some thugs in front, and Bong-soo tells Cheon to avoid the district at all costs because it is the most dangerous slum out there. Apparently, the Space Gang was once in District 11, but they have expanded their territory to District 13. Bong-soo says the police don't even go there anymore, and this is when Bong-soo reveals that they are actually standing in District 12. This got Cheon worried as he wondered if the orphanage where he lived in District 13 was still there. Meanwhile, inside a children's clothing store, the owner is already regretting her decision to open a children's store inside the slum, and she is thinking of switching businesses when Cheon enters the store. After a funny interaction between Bong-soo and the store owner Park, he tells her that Cheon is there to purchase some clothes. Park angrily grabs Bong-soo by the cheeks, telling him to stop bringing broke hunters to her store because she has a lot of them owing her already. Park has already written Cheon off because of the way he is dressed. Apparently, she was the one who told Bong-soo to bring pitiful hunters to the store because they remind her of her late brother. Park admits this but says she will eventually run out of business if she continues helping. While the two are busy arguing like a couple, Cheon is checking the clothes in the room. Just then, Cheon cuts in, telling them that he wants to buy clothes and brings out a 10 million won bill, saying it is all the money he has. The moment they see this, their reception changes as Park starts acting like a good store owner while Bong-soo carries a plate of snacks and a drink for him. Park starts marketing all the clothes that she has in the store. Cheon then tells the store owner that he needs clothes for a middle-aged girl and himself. Park is glad to hear this, and she jumps right into her store to start bringing out the beautiful clothes that she has. By the end of the day, Cheon has bought out every piece of clothing he can from the store, and the store owner wishes that her day could just continue the way it is. After packing everything, she offers to get them delivered, but Cheon assures her that he can carry them by himself. Cheon then brings out 100,000 won for Bong-soo, and he tells him that he has another favor to ask him. After they step out of the store, Bong-soo stays silent until he leads Cheon to an inn that he had asked for. He assures him that the inn is safe because there is a police station nearby, and the owner is a nice person. After hearing this, Cheon steps in, telling Bong-soo to wait outside for him. Bong-soo stands outside thinking about what happened in the store. He believes something is off because Cheon gave him 100,000 won and also bought him clothes. He believes that Cheon is one of the guys who lures kids to kidnap them, leaving him with the option of whether to run or not. At the same time, he thinks about it and realizes that Cheon might actually be a good person. Momentarily, Cheon returns outside and says that Bong-soo was right about the owner being nice. Suddenly, he hands Bong-soo a key, saying he can clearly see that he is living on the streets. Cheon has paid a year's rent in advance so he can start living there, and in addition, he has paid for his meals too. Cheon tells Bong-soo to make sure that he eats properly, and after sorting everything, he tells Bong-soo that he is leaving. Just as Cheon is about to enter the gate to go back to the demon realm, Bong-soo is forced to ask him if he has an ulterior motive because he just met him that very day. Bong-soo cannot believe that Cheon did all the nice things for him, and Cheon tells him that doing all he did basically reminded him of how things used to be. Cheon mentions that he was once like Bong-soo, even though it was a long time ago. With this, Cheon steps into the demon realm, and by the time he returns, Nari is already worried because Cheon stepped out without saying anything. Cheon then mentions that he went out to get Nari gifts. He drops the bag with her, and it is essentially filled with nice clothes. Nari is super excited about the nice clothes that Cheon bought for her, and he urges her to take them into the house to try them on. In a quick revelation, it was Kiseok's clothes that Cheon borrowed to go to the human world, and he didn't even get him anything when coming back. Later on, Cheon sits down to fold the clothes while Nari tries on some. Cheon is glad that Nari is excited about the clothes that he bought for her, and she also looks cute while wearing them. After trying out a few, she finally picks her best one, which is the one with the chick drawing in the middle, and she claims it looks like Gu. Gu cannot believe that he is being compared to a dull chicken drawing on a cloth. Cheon then offers her the chance to try folding the rest of the clothes herself, and she happily accepts it. Gu then mentions that there is no room in the house for all the clothes that Cheon brought back. Cheon says he's been thinking about this, and his solution is that they are going to expand the house so he can create a walk-in closet and then install a built-in wardrobe. Gu is worried that they need to start cutting trees for this, but Cheon tells him that he has the perfect person who would help them out. Just then, he summons Kiseok, telling him that he has another special training for him. Kiseok is excited to be called upon, and he informs Cheon that he has cleaned his training outfit, and by this, he is talking about Cheon's ragged outfit. Kiseok mentions that it was soaked in poison, and because he didn't know, he almost died just by touching it. Kiseok believes that Cheon intentionally left the poison on the outfit to train himself to get stronger. Unknown to Kiseok, Cheon was just too lazy to wash it, and suddenly, he tells Kiseok that he is free to wear it. Cheon plays the perfect card by telling Kiseok that it is going to make for the perfect training uniform. He tells him to put it on and go chop down some wood. Gu, the instigator, steps in, saying he will be the one to even pick out the woods for him. Kisiok immediately becomes worried because he might actually die just by wearing the outfit, and Cheon is making it harder by telling him to go chop down trees. Suddenly, Nari screams at them from inside the house, saying there is something wrong with the egg. The group enters the house, and Cheon believes that the egg is about to hatch, which is why the movements are getting violent. Kisiok is worried that a disaster-grade monster will come out of the egg, but Nari disagrees, saying it is going to bore a cute monster. The two are arguing when the egg starts to hatch, and what comes out first are some really sharp claws. The group remains curious until the entire egg hatches, revealing the creature inside, but Nari and Kisiok are entirely confused because the creature is not one they have seen before. It has the body of a snake while its feet look like those of a bird. The creature wastes no time jumping from the table onto Kisiok's face, and he almost dies from fear. Later on, Kisiok begins cutting down the trees as requested by his master. Gu sits on his head to monitor and supervise, and while cutting the trees, Kisiok is having a really tough time because of the poison present in the outfit. Kisiok cannot believe that Cheon was perfectly walking around in the damn outfit. Cheon, on the other hand, just had a good time after folding clothes. Nari then shows up with the creature in her hands, telling Cheon that it appears to be an obedient and nice creature. Cheon believes that the creature is loyal to Nari because it can figure out that she was the one who saved its life. However, the question of what they are going to name it remains. Cheon then suggests that they name it Sasa because it is part snake. Nari is still discussing this with Cheon when Sasa jumps off and runs toward the woods. Cheon is glad that the two are having a good time together, which speaks well for the family. Cheon then tells Gu that he has never seen a creature like Sasa before, and Gu says the same thing, which possibly means it's a rare species. However, Gu knows that it is certain that the monster is from the volcanic region, and because of this, they need to keep an eye on the mandragoras. Apparently, monsters from the volcanic zone consider plant-type species a delicacy. Basically, they munch on any plant that they see, since plants are scarce in the region. In addition to this, they like plants that are filled with strong demonic energy. Because of this, Gu is confident that the monster will try to dig up the mandragoras so it can eat them. Just like Gu predicted, the monster has already made its way to the mandragoras field, and a stare-down ensues between them. Nari wants to stop them, but Cheon says there is no need for this. He believes that they are monsters and they need to get a go at each other even once to sort out their differences. Since Sasa is still quite young, Cheon doesn't think it poses much danger to the plants. Just then, Sasa aims for the smallest mandragora, but the biggest one blocks it. The mandragora immediately jumps into a defensive then counterattack formation, and just as expected, the second mandragora launches the counterattack. However, Sasa blocks the attack with its tail, while looking like it's smiling. However, the third one already uses the opportunity to close down on Sasa. In the end, the mandragoras beat Sasa up, and it starts crying. Sasa ends up running away, and Cheon mentions that the mandragoras are the winners of the first round of the fight. Since the show is over, Cheon suggests that it is time they return to what they were doing. 2 days later, Kisiok completes the extension of the house, and Kisiok gladly dumps the outfit with tears of joy running down his cheek. He wonders if he did it well, but Cheon shows up, praising him for even doing it better than expected. Nari is also impressed because the house smells like flowers, and this is thanks to Gu picking out aromatic wood for the building. Cheon is confident that all the clothes stored there will also smell nice. When Kisiok learns that Cheon has given the new monster a name, which is Sasa, he proposes a supposedly better one. Cheon tells him to reveal his proposed name, and he ends up picking Snake Chick, which is the dumbest name a human can think of. Nari suggests her own name, but it turns out to be trash too. Gu wants to join the conversation, and Cheon decides to ask him for his real name, since he claimed he had one before. Gu then reveals that his real name is Rocky Mountain Hoof, which basically expresses his identity. Cheon heaves in disappointment, since he is living with a bunch of dull brains. Since no other person can come up with a better name, the group just sticks with Sasa. Since they are done with the house extension, Gu asks Cheon what their next plan is. Cheon then reveals what he thought about when he was in the human realm. He suggests that they build a sturdy fence around the house to stop monsters from coming in, even when he is not around. Kisiok stares at the house and doubts if anyone or any monster in their right senses would try to approach the scary house. Cheon then says an S-class monster or rogue hunters might show up. Since they are looking to keep people out, Gu says it has to be made from materials with dense demonic energy, and to get this, they are going to have to go to the coastal area. Apparently, there is a yellowish quartz there that is even harder than blackstone. Cheon already imagines how beautiful the fence is going to look if they attach glowstones to it too. While Nari and Gu are excited that they are going to the coastal area, Kisiok is having a nightmare about it. Kisiok is scared to death, but just then, he gets a nosebleed, which means he has to return to the human world. Kisiok cannot be happier because it happened at the right time. Kisiok immediately tells Cheon that he needs to head out to get meds for demonic energy, and Cheon agrees. He tells him to take care of the Mandragoras just in case they come back late. Kisiok then tells Cheon to be careful of the coastal region because it is a dangerous place for A-rank hunters and below. Basically, the region is being ruled by 2 disaster-grade monsters. This is the first time Cheon will hear this, and Kisiok explains that reports said that they are chimera hunters who escaped the lab a long time ago. Apparently, they have the heads of birds, but their bodies maintain their human form. Meanwhile, some hunters are practically going up against the said disaster-class monsters. They land a direct tracking hit, causing the monsters to turn in the opposite direction. They believe it is running away and suggest that they pursue it. However, one of them says they should wait until the monsters reach their shelter before taking them out. The hunters are surprised that even after 60 years, the monsters are not dead yet. They believe that the chimeras have completely turned into monsters, and the hunters are not ready to allow the monsters to tarnish the great achievement that came with the creation of chimera hunters. Suddenly, they notice that the monster is not even running away but aiming straight for them. The team leader orders his men to put up a barrier against the incoming attack. However, their barrier didn't do much against the monster as it shattered it with just a single blow. This is when it finally starts to dawn on them that they have misjudged the monster's strength. The monster comes at them again, and is about to finish them off when Nari appears on the scene to punch the monster, while telling it to pick on people its own size. The monster figures out that Nari is a chimera, and he leaps backward to reassess the situation. Nari then tells Cheon that the monster is bullying the hunters, but Cheon thinks it is actually the wrong way. Just then, the hunters get the wind that the mechanical chimera is around them. This is when it dawns on Cheon that Nari still has a tracking device embedded in her. In addition, Cheon seems to know the birdhead dude. Cheon then screams at him, reminding him that they were roommates, but he can't seem to remember his tag number. While Cheon is discussing with the birdhead, the hunters suggest that it would be best if they retreat and return to the human world. However, they plan to come back stronger, and the moment Cheon hears this, he knows that they are going to be a pain. Without hesitation, he suggests that he and the birdhead take care of the situation. It turns out that the bird was truly his roommate, number 33. Number 33 also recognizes the smell coming from Cheon, and he is able to figure out that he is number 17. 66 years ago, in a forest close to the TDA laboratory, number 33 was seen carrying a little girl on his back as they tried to escape the lab. Apparently, the little girl was named Gia then, and number 33 was struggling to get them both to safety. As they run through the forest, they suddenly run into little Cheon, who tells number 33 that he heard about his side effects and the fact that they are getting worse. Cheon told him that it would still end badly for him if he didn't return in 3 days because the detonation spell would kick into play and kill him. However, Cheon says his sister, Gia, is not scheduled for termination yet. Cheon suggests that number 33 stay back at the lab, where he can get suppressants for his side effects so he can live a bit longer, even if it is a day. Number 33 then tells Cheon that he is never going to know how they feel, since he has no side effects like the rest of them. Number 30 lies his sister down, and tells Cheon that all he cares about is living freely, and to get this, he is ready to fight Cheon to get out of his way. Just then, Cheon opens a gate to the demon realm for him, shocking number 33 because he never expected him to have a gatestone. Basically, they know that there are 2 options for them if they step into the demon realm. It's either their human cells get poisoned by the demonic energy, or their monster cells absorb the demonic energy and get activated. Cheon lets number 33 know that the demon realm is the best option for him since he wants to live freely until he dies. Basically, the lab's detonation spell won't activate if they cross into the demon realm. Number 33 asked Cheon if there was a way to survive in the demon realm, and he told him that he would have to build up enough mana to protect his human body and mind from the demonic energy. Cheon admits that it might not be easy for him because of his current abilities, but he is pretty sure that the future holds uncertainty. Number 33 says he might not know why Cheon is helping them, but he is taking the help nonetheless. Before entering the demon realm, number 33 says they have been roommates for 4 years, but still do not know each other's names. This is when number 33 finally reveals that his name is Yubeom. Now in the present, Cheon puts the hunters in a state of mind control to erase their memories, and once he realizes that it is working perfectly, he lets them go. Apparently, Cheon has the cells of an oblivion herb transplanted into his body, and this causes hypnosis and memory loss. Yubeom cannot believe the number of things that were injected into Cheon's body just because he never showed side effects. Cheon lets the dude know that a lot actually happened after he left. Nari then drags Cheon's clothes to ask him if he knows Yubeom from somewhere. Since they are playing the native game, Cheon tells Nari that Yubeom is from the Sparrow tribe, shocking Yubeom himself. Cheon even makes it more fun by teasing Nari, asking her if the Sparrow tribe and the Coconut tribe are allies. Nari quickly answers that they are actually allies. While the two are saying this, Yubeom remains totally confused. Just then, Nari bows her head to apologize to Cheon, saying she attacked him because she thought he was a bad person. Nari immediately starts complaining about hunger, and Cheon asks Yubeom if he has any food at his house. Yubeom is still confused by the whole thing playing out in his presence because he doesn't want to believe the fact that Cheon is raising a daughter. Momentarily, Yubeom takes the group to his house, which is built like a real bird's nest. Cheon commends Yubeom, telling him that he actually built his house very well. Yubeom then brings out a plate of grilled clams that he made, which he even added Deamon butternut to. Just from looking at it, it appears to be delicious already, and the moment Gu and Nari taste it, they find themselves in food heaven. Even Cheon admits that the food tastes really good, even the red moss that Yubeom added to it. Yubeom takes pride in his cooking as he mentioned that the red moss is an all-purpose seasoning. Yubeom is about to tell them to eat slowly when he hears Nari screaming for more. Yubeom almost faints from a heart attack because he is out of ingredients. Since Nari enjoyed the food so much, she offered to go catch some clams so that Yubeom could make the dish again. Yubeom then mentions that it might be a bit dangerous for her to catch the clams, but Nari runs off, promising to catch as many as she can because she wants to eat to her heart's content. While the kids are gone, the elders are left to discuss the aftermath of his departure. Yubeom is impressed when he hears that Cheon actually came back to life thanks to the immortality cells inside him. Yubeom then asks Cheon if he plans on getting back to the laboratory. Cheon confesses that sometimes he actually feels like it, but he thinks he already has a good life, so he doesn't need to rush things. Cheon then asks Yubeom if he plans on getting revenge too. Yubeom then mentions that the spells in Cheon's body might have disappeared after he came back to life, but the same cannot be said for them. As for them, they still have the detonation spells in their bodies. Yubeom is pretty sure that they are going to explode the moment they return to the human world. Cheon notices that Yubeom can control his wings, but he asks him about his head and if it has ever returned to normal. Yubeom then mentions that he can actually change it back, but he is intentionally keeping it the way it is. Apparently, his sister's face has changed, and if he looks normal, her sister will definitely feel bad. Just then, Cheon asks Yubeom a delicate question, which is whether he knows that he has just a month left to live. Yubeom is not surprised by this because he already knows too. Yubeom admits that it was tough when he first arrived in the demon realm, and he had to gather mana just to survive. Later on, he felt that his mana and demonic energy were at the same level, and because of this, Yubeom was at peace for a long time. However, something terrible happened sometime not too long ago. Jia's mana hole got tangled and her demonic energy started to run rampant. Yubeom says he tried to force it open, but this damaged his own mana hole in the process. Yubeom says he has been managing it, but Jia has been sleeping because she prefers to eat fruits with sleeping poison. Cheon figures out that Jia intentionally puts herself in a state of comatose to slow down the demonic energy ravaging her system. Just then, it dawns on Cheon that there is a potion that can be made with mandragora to heal the mana hole. Cheon figures out that Yubeom didn't know this, which is why he has not done it. Meanwhile, Jia is having a tough time in the cave where she is hiding. Yubeom is ultimately shocked when he learns that he and Jia can live. Cheon doesn't blame Yubeom's ignorance because he himself only knew everything because he studied pharmacology at the lab from age 15. Cheon tells him that all he needs is to drink refined water from a mana hole infused with the leftover roots of a mandragora. Cheon always thought the leftovers were insignificant, but they actually absorb demonic energy underground, then sprout into new entities, even multiplying into more. It is basically a source of vitality on its own. Because of this, any refined water made from its leftover roots shows remarkable effects in regenerating mana holes. Cheon never thought it would be of use to him, but he is thankful. He is actually raising mandragoras. Cheon then tells Yubeom that he will leave to get him some. Yubeom is shocked to hear that Cheon is willing to go to the human realm to get refined water. Cheon points out the obvious fact that Yubeom can't go because of the curse on him, which is why he needs to be the one to go. However, he urges Yubeom to keep an eye on Nari and Gu while he is gone. Since the alchemist who will make the refined water will demand payment, Cheon asks Yubeom if he has any money, but he says no. However, he has a load of other stuff that he collected from hunters. Cheon takes the items and assures Yubeom that they will be enough for what he wants. Cheon heads to the human realm, and he meets with Bongsu to tell him that he needs an alchemist. Thankfully, Bongsu has become a respectable guide, and he tells Cheon about a branch of alchemy that opened in the slums. He plans to lead Cheon there since it is their best chance at finding what he needs. Cheon notices that Bongsu is wearing sandbags on his arms and legs, and he asks him why. Bongsu mentions that he is building his stamina so he can become strong, just like Cheon. Cheon is surprised to hear this, and Bongsu tells him that he already figured out that Cheon is an incredible hunter because he basically enters the demon realm with nothing but his bare body. Momentarily, they arrive at the alchemy shop, and Bongsu tells Cheon that a new branch manager arrived not long ago, and it said that he is really skilled. In addition to his skills, he has a good personality. Just then, they spot the said manager in the distance, getting a call from the loan shark. Bongsu mentions that the manager originally worked at the Gold City branch for 20 years, but he was demoted and transferred to the slums, and in addition, they slashed his salary too. Xian believes that the dude did something wrong, which is why he was obviously demoted. Bongsu then explains that from what he heard, one of his higher-ups was secretly taking money from the packages meant for the slums. However, when the alchemist Kim reported it, he was thrown out for being a troublemaker, which is how he ended up in the slum. Just then, Kim notices Bongsu's presence, and his sad face immediately goes bright. Bongsu then tells Kim that Cheon needs an alchemist. Cheon uses his power to access the dude, and he can see that he is clearly skilled. Once he is done pairing them together, Bongsu leaves, claiming that he needs to go and train. Inside the alchemy office, the attendant is complaining about the low returns when Cheon and the manager enter the room. Upon entering, Cheon immediately cuts to the chase, asking Kim if he can make refined mana holes using mandragora, since he is an A-rank alchemist. Cheon adds that he needs about 2 liters of the refined water. Kim believes that Cheon is saying trash because he knows that there are no mandragoras in the slums, and in addition to this, he wonders just how Cheon knows his rank. Kim is about to turn the offer down because of a lack of ingredients when Cheon pulls tiny mandragora roots that contain dense demonic energy, shocking Kim. Kim is totally blown away because the roots look absolutely fresh, like they have just been harvested. Cheon then mentions that he plans to pay for Kim's services with specialties from the coastal region. He gives Kim the bag, telling him to appraise everything inside the bag. Kim looks into the bag to see S-rank black pearls, leaving him blown because even the headquarters have never seen one. In addition to this, there are giant clams and red moss. Cheon then asks Kim if everything will be enough to cover the manufacturing fee, and he says yes. In fact, the whole ingredient is more than enough to buy the entire building. The attendant tells Kim that he needs to get the appraisal equipment since high-value items also need expensive equipment to appraise. After the attendant leaves the room, Cheon spots a mandragora in a tube, and he asks Kim about it, since he said they didn't have any. Kim mentions that the mandragora he is looking at is dead for about 10 years, which basically means all of its medicinal effects are gone. Kim only kept it around because of his interest in mandragora research. Just then, Cheon mentions that the mandragora is still alive, shocking the dude. Cheon then feeds it mana, and to Kim's surprise, the mandragora reacts to it. Cheon mentions that the mandragora is in a comatose state because it has exhausted its demonic energy. Kim doesn't want to believe what is happening because he has fed the mandragora lots of mana himself. Just then, Kim's evil boss, An, enters the room, and he wastes no time making fun of Kim and his trash office. Kim is surprised to see the man there, and he asks him why he came to the slums. And then mentions that he got a report that something good just entered the lab, which is why he came around. Kim is surprised to hear this, leaving him to wonder if his assistant has already contacted An, and then talks about his subordinates, a set of twins, who are ability users, and then turns to Cheon to introduce himself as An Jijong, the director of the Alchemy Association. He wants Cheon to come with him to Gold City, and he promises to take care of him. An continues by saying he is prepared to give Cheon an exclusive contract, which he will never get from Kim. Cheon then asks An about the wart on his nose because he wants to know his relation to An Bokdiok, and laughs out loud when he hears this, and he reveals that Bokdiok is his grandfather. Cheon can clearly see the trash resemblance between them both because Bokdiok was the person in charge of the experiments that made him a chimera. He was a trash scientist who never cared about the kids, and he even has a wart on his nose just like his grandson. The moment Cheon confirms that they are alike, Cheon hits An with so much aura that he falls to his knees. Cheon talks about how disappointed he is that An is just like his trash grandfather, who is a greedy and power-drunk person. An is genuinely confused, and Cheon decides that he has a simple question, which will determine whether he lives or dies. With so much fury in his eyes, Cheon asks if the TDA laboratory still exists, and answers that he has no idea what Cheon is talking about, leaving Cheon to ask him again if he truly does not know about the Chimera Research Lab where Bokdiok worked as a senior researcher. Kim is hiding behind something, and he is surprised to hear that Bokdiok, who won the Peace Prize, actually worked at an illegal lab. Still on the floor, An berates Cheon, telling him not to soil his father's name because he worked hard to nurture the next generation at the university. Even after retiring, he donated his entire fortune to the families of the Gate victims, which is what earned him the Peace Prize. Cheon figures out that Bokdiok decided to make a public repentance after killing so many people behind the scenes. Cheon was expecting him to still be alive since he was an awakened, but he died so quickly. Cheon then asks if it was an after effect of falling from a window, and this shocks An because the incident wasn't known to the public, and is curious about this, and Cheon mentions that he was the one who pushed Bokdiok from the window because he turned kidnapped kids into chimeras. He threatened to push them into a gate, but Cheon took action first, and he pushed the dude from the window. Cheon then tells An that he is going to give him just one chance. He wants An to go back and look into the TDA research lab. Cheon lets An know that he will be there to find him when the time is right. Cheon is surprised that he met Bokdeok's offspring in the slums. He remembers how they subjected him to the painful experiment when he was 9 years old, and the monster parts started to show on his body in his 20s. From that point onward, he really doesn't remember what happened. He figures out that he was basically following orders and instincts without being able to think for himself. It suddenly dawns on him that the lab's name might have changed because it's been a long time. Shortly afterward, Kim returns from his lab with the refined water that he wants. Cheon is impressed that he was very fast about it, even though he is an A-rank alchemist. Kim reveals that the ingredients were so good that everything went smoothly. Just then, Cheon asks Kim if he would be willing to sign a personal contract with him, and he promises to give him the remaining ingredients. Kim is shocked when he hears Cheon offering him an exclusive contract in addition to the expensive ingredients that he has. Tears of joy start falling out of his eyes when Kim hears this, leaving Cheon confused as he thinks he has offered the dude a bad deal. Kim then mentions that he was originally from the slums, and when he was young, his parents took a massive private loan. He promised he would pay it back, but no matter how much he tried, he was always stuck in the same place. What Cheon just did for him is considered the greatest kindness, leaving him to wonder just how much he can repay it. Cheon cannot believe that the dude is already thinking of paying him back. Cheon then tells Kim that all he wants is for them to continue working together. Cheon knows that there are things he will still need from Kim in the future. Since his business is done, he figures out that it is time to go back, but he hopes nothing has gone wrong in his absence. Just as he feared, Jia had gone on a rampage and had beaten Yubeom up. Even while getting beaten up, Yubeom is hellbent on keeping his promise to keep the kids safe. Yubeom finally decides to engage his sister in a fierce battle, and he dashes toward her at great speed. He knocks her to the ground, but suddenly, a strange barrier covers her. Yubeom is wondering what is happening when he finally realizes that Cheon was the one who put a jellyfish covering on her to restrain her. Everyone is relieved with Cheon's arrival, and Yubeom asks him if he got the medicine. Cheon assures him that he got it with him. He tells her to give Jia a bottle and take the other one for himself. After drinking the medicine, Jia calms down, and she later wakes up in the night with Nari sleeping beside her. Jia stands up, thinking it's a dream until he sees Yubeom and Cheon sitting together by the fire. When Cheon turns around to look at Jia, she almost passes out, as she screams, asking Cheon who he is. Jia's scream wakes Jia from her sleep, and she wastes no time acting all friendly with her. Yubeom then tells Jia to check her mana hole, and when she does, she realizes that it is completely healed. In addition to this, her face has returned to normal. Jia is blown away by this, and she asks Yubeom where he found the people at their house. Yubeom is surprised that she doesn't recognize Cheon when she is the one who has been crying to see him. Yubeom understands that it's been a long time, which is why she doesn't recognize him. However, after a good look, Jia finally realizes that Cheon is number 17. She runs over to his brother to confirm if she's really looking at number 17, and he says yes. Instead of acting all friendly, Cheon decides to aura by asking if there is any more red moss. Yubeom replies that there is no more red moss, but Jia is not surprised because Cheon was always the least empathetic person with empathy. Nonetheless, she takes off her mask to thank Cheon for everything that he has done so far. Suddenly, Nari notices something sparkling in the sea, and Jia explains that it is a sea fairy. Apparently, they are basically seahorses that live deep in the sea, but Jia and Yubeom gave them the sea fairy nickname because they look like fairies when playing with them. Apparently, the seahorses only come out at night and return when the sun rises. Jia reveals that if they follow the sea fairies, they can find a yellow glowing quartz. This is when it dawns on Cheon that he has totally forgotten his main objective. Cheon then asks when the sun will rise, and Jia says it will come out very soon. Since this is the case, Cheon decides that he needs to go for a swim. Meanwhile, on the outside, the scientists have recorded the last known location of the mechanical chimera to be the coastal region. The scientists are having a meeting when An calls Myung-do, asking him if he knows anything about the TDA laboratory. Myung-do says he has not heard of the lab, and An mentions that it was an illegal lab that was run a long time ago. Myung-do tries telling An that the Hanbit research lab doesn't do the kind of things he is looking for. Myung-do mentions that Bokdeok always told him to be an upright and honest researcher. After the call, Myung-do starts wondering how An knew about the illegal lab. Momentarily, one of his attendants enters the room, telling him that they have been successful in creating a liquid metal mandragora. Myung-do is glad about his new creation because the mandragoras are quite exceptional when it comes to kinship. He is glad that he left a little liquid metal behind. He is pretty sure that the metal mandragora will go after Nari and will be able to find her quickly. He then orders that they triple the bounty on Nari and also engage all A-class hunters. He is desperate to find Nari no matter what because he considers her his life masterpiece. Back in the demon realm, Yubiom stands in front of the sea and remembers the conversation he had with Cheon about the quartz. Apparently, Cheon had told him that he wanted to use it for his house, shocking Yubiom. Yubiom realizes that Cheon has been having a good time in the demon realm. Cheon then asks Yubiom if he would like to visit the human world, and Yubiom says he is not entirely curious, but he would like to see how things have changed. Cheon then told him that he could actually help him get rid of the curse on his body. Yubiom is curious about this, and Cheon tells Yubiom about the alchemist, saying Kim is pretty skilled. Cheon says he wants to get Kim to research spells, but he urges Yubiom not to get his hopes high. Yubiom starts crying while asking Cheon why he always helps them when they have never done anything for him before. Cheon reveals that looking at the siblings impresses him and makes him wonder if there is anything more important than surviving. Cheon says that by helping Yubiom and his sister, he believes that he is going to find an answer. Now, standing in front of the clear sea, his sister suddenly appears in the distance and throws a rope to him, telling him to pull it. Without knowing what it is, Yubiom pulls it but realizes that it is actually very heavy. Yubiom uses all of his strength to pull it hard, and he manages to pull the heavy item out of the water. It turns out to be a large quantity of quartz. Yubiom is absolutely blown away when he sees this, as he cannot believe that Cheon and his team mined something so large. Nari and Cheon had fun swimming in the water while mining the quartz. When they got to the Sea Fairy's palace, it was absolutely beautiful, just like a yellow palace. Nari tells Cheon that she would like them to visit the palace another time. Because of how many stones there are, Yubiom asks Cheon how he plans to move them to his house. Cheon then says he would have to start thinking about that. Suddenly he spots a parrot-billed bird flying above them. He wonders why a bird that usually moves in a flock is suddenly flying solo. Nari is blown away by the sight of the parrot, and she says it looks very pretty, but Gia tells her that she is going to change her mind when she moves closer. Gia says the birds are over 4 meters long, and they are extremely vicious. Because of how terrible they are, Gia and Yubiom don't even mess with them. However, Yubiom already knows the wild idea going through Cheon's head. Cheon confirms this, saying he was basically looking for a truck and the bird showed up. Back at the house, Kishuk is still working on building up his mana, and he can see that his mana hole is actually getting bigger. He is impressed with what he has achieved, and he believes that his dream of becoming an A-rank hunter might actually come through. He's thinking about this when the metal mandragora appears behind him. He panics when he sees the weird creature, but his worries are not over because standing behind the mandragora are 3 scary A-rank hunters too. The hunters recognize Kisiok thanks to his bald head, and they waste no time making fun of him. Apparently, they were the ones who bullied Kisiok when he went to apply for the promotion exam. Kisiok is panicking when he suddenly realizes that 3 mandragoras in the garden are standing their ground, and they are doing it in the most fashionable way. The hunters are excited about the mandragoras because of how much they are worth. One of the hunters approaches the mandragora to try and deceive it. Kisiok is already preparing to lay down his life to protect the mandragoras when the biggest mandragora kicks the hunter so hard that he is sent flying into the distance. Surprisingly, Yubiom and Gia arrive at the house at the same time, leaving them to wonder who is causing trouble at Cheon's house. Apparently, the two had gone ahead of Cheon to get to his house because the parrot-billed bird was flying so slowly, thanks to Cheon beating it up while trying to tame it.